Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, January 6th, 2025. I got the date here right. Impressive. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. Warm welcome is extended to councillors, staff, delegations, and observers who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether they are physically in attendance in the council chamber in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers, as able, are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. To those, anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I do have regrets tonight from Councillor Richardson. Let us move to item 5 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. Members of council have full lives with engagement in the community. Sometimes they may find themselves with a potential financial or pecuniary interest in an item at the council table. Provincial legislation mandates councillors to declare this interest and in so doing avoid direct involvement in the consideration or voting on the item. I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already so declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session. Documentation is to be submitted, if not already done, pursuant to council procedures. Councillors may declare now or at any point in the meeting should such interest be recognized. Colleagues, I haven't seen anything in advance of this meeting. Anyone have a declaration to make at this hour? Seeing none, we will move forward then. As chair of the meeting, I'll manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda and the rules of procedure. Some may be participating remotely by web conference, and in fact, we know a few are. Should they wish to speak, they may draw the attention of the clerk to this using the conferencing technology's text chat function. If technical difficulties arise for remote participants, we have one of our wizards of AV and IT on duty tonight, and we will try to send him to help. Let us now focus on the people's business. Part of that focus is achieved when those in the chamber silence and put away their phones. Regarding item 6 of our agenda, I have a resolution for our consideration to approve the agenda as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call for mover, Councillor Anstick? Thank you. Councillor Blazek will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Councillor Johnston records a manual in favor vote, and with that, that is carried. Thank you. We're now at item 7 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed in our agenda because they're believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. There are 17 items on the consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Colleagues, anything to extract here or any corrections to the minutes that should be noted? I'm not seeing any hands waving at me, so I have a motion for our consideration as follows. The consent items 7.1 to 7.17. We received for information and the minutes of the December 16th, 2024 regular council meeting be adopted, moved by Councillor Andreessen and seconded by Councillor Rothfield. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. At this time, it's proposed that we move to agenda item number 8. We will now consider a delegation from one with interest in our council's business or authority. I'll remind our delegation, I'm hoping that they can hear us, that in accordance with this council's procedural bylaw, a total time of 10 minutes per delegation is permitted, and that includes both presentation time and providing an opportunity for councillors to ask questions. A delegation is to present on the topic declared on the submitted request for delegation forms, and deviations from the topic are not acceptable to the chair or this council. Decorum is required. Further to my request that we maintain an atmosphere of respect and courtesy, I remind those delegating that they should not use the names of those who have not consented to such use. Tonight we have Maddie Fromm from Food Cycler who wishes to inform council about programs and opportunities with the Food Cycler device. Ms. Fromm, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen. A moment, please. Here we go. Hopefully you can all see this. So thank you everyone for having me, Mayor, councillors, and staff. My name is Maddie Fromm. I am the municipal representative at Food Cycle Science, and I'm here today to discuss a food waste diversion opportunity for the town of North Perth, or municipality of North Perth. So Food Cycle Science is a Canadian company. We are founded in Ottawa. We We sell our product to retail, we sell to commercial, and we sell our food cycler to municipalities like yours through the food cycler solutions. And that's what I'll be talking about today. So we've been working with 150 Canadian municipalities across 9 provinces and 2 territories. You can find us in rural and remote areas all the way to highly populated cities. And nearby to you, we have programs in the town of Hanover and Bruce County. So the communities that partner with us, they have the same thing in common. They understand the problem with food waste and they've decided to make a change. Now, the problem with food waste is that it's avoidable. It accounts for a large portion of our household waste. It's typically the majority, and it's made up of liquid, which is heavy and it freezes in the winter. On top of that, food waste is a nasty problem that creates methane, which is very harmful to the environment. So there's a few municipal impacts that come with food waste. So as you know, operating a landfill is very costly for a municipality, so we want to try and extend the lifespan of them for as long as possible. Since food waste accounts for about 25 to 50% of household waste, it takes up a lot of space. Then there's the environmental factors. So organic waste in landfill produces the greenhouse gas methane, which is 25 times more harmful than CO2. So to put that into perspective, by removing 1 ton of food waste out of the waste stream, that's the equivalent to taking 1 car off the road for an entire year. And then in our community, you know, food waste in the garbage is very nasty. It smells, it creates mold. And then this isn't nice for us, but it also attracts animals. And those animals tend to rummage through our trash, causing problems. So by removing food waste from the landfill, we can remove these issues and save space and money. Sorry. So now we get asked, haven't we solved this already? And yes, there are a few solutions. So there are green bins, which are common in big cities with high population density and the right infrastructure. However, in more rural or remote areas, these can be operationally challenging and cost prohibitive to implement. We also see that green bin programs struggle to get above a 40 to 60% participation rate, meaning that, you know, this solution alone isn't really solving our problem. And then many people in your community might try and backyard compost. And of course, this is an ideal solution. However, backyard composting still has the issue with animals getting into it. And it's not easy for everybody. It's not a feasible solution for everybody. And then lastly, you could put your food waste into the landfill and do what we're doing, which is harmful to the environment and costly to a municipality. So at Food Cycle Science, we've come up with a different way to manage our food waste. Essentially, we've built an in-home appliance. It's very easy to use. You put your food waste into the bucket, you put that bucket back into the machine, you press a button, and then in a matter of a few hours, you're left with a dry, sterile, nutrient-rich soil amendment. So it handles all types of food waste, and that includes meat, dairy, bones, pits, etc. And that's really great because those are foods that typically can't go into a green bin sometimes, or even a backyard composter. It only needs a plug to run, so most people will put it in their kitchen, maybe a basement or a heated garage if you have one. And then it takes 4 to 8 hours to complete a cycle using about 11 kilowatt hour of power, which costs 11 cents per cycle. And then that resulting soil amendment at the end has many beneficial uses, which can go from putting it into a composter or a green bin system if you have one, storing it for later use, or putting it in your garden. So here's a look at our units that we'd be using for your municipality. The difference between the two really comes down to capacity and unit size. So you have the Eco 3, which holds 3.5 liters of food waste, and it's designed for smaller families or spaces like apartments and condos. And then the Eco 5, which holds 5 liters of food waste and is designed for those who create more food waste, essentially. Both of the machines are equipped with a refillable carbon filter, so that eliminates any smells that occur during the process, but you don't need to refill the carbon filter for the product to run. If you don't want to, if you're putting it in your basement where you're not going to notice the smells, you don't need to worry about that. Now, I like to show this image because it's a really good picture of the reduction in volume you get when you run your food cycler. So in one cycle, a full bucket of food waste is going to reduce in volume up to 90%, leaving you with about 100 to 200 grams of the soil amendment. Now, the soil amendment used has many beneficial uses. So it's a dry, sterile, odorless, nutrient-rich soil amendment. It can be stored indefinitely. So if you put it in an airtight container, and you can add that to your soil, you can put that in a composter. You could integrate it into an existing leaf and yard waste system. You could donate it by means of dropping it off at a compost site, a local farm, or a community garden. And of course, if you had a green bin, you could add it to that. So the environmental impact of the food cycler. So over its lifetime, it's actually a net negative carbon solution. And what that means, it's just like using solar panels or planting trees. When you use the food cycler to avoid bringing food waste to the landfill, you're actually avoiding more greenhouse gases than you create in that entire process, which is really nice when you're trying to do something good for the environment. You want to make sure that over its lifetime, it's actually a good thing. So when we're looking at the economic impact, the food cycler offers a decentralized solution that takes out many steps that are carbon creating. So the food cycler is three very simple steps. You put the food waste into it, you turn it on, and then you can use that in the soil. We're taking out all of the traditional waste management steps, which are very, as I said, carbon heavy. Now, when we're thinking about the food cycler, when we're working with these municipalities, what we've seen is that residents are really interested in being part of the solution. They want to try new things, they want options, and they love it when their government brings these options to their community. And with the food cycler, you get to bring something that's innovative and tangible to residents. So the results from our pilot projects have been overwhelmingly positive. We see a 98% participation rate. We have a user experience rating of 4.6 out of 5 stars, and there's a significant amount of net new waste diversion taking place. So approximately 300 kilograms of food waste per year is being diverted, which is really exciting. So the pilot program model is very simple. How it works is residents would purchase a food cycler at a subsidized rate from the municipal office. They use that food cycler for 12 weeks, tracking the number of cycles per week. At the end, all we ask is that they complete a survey so we can evaluate the program's success. We will then present the results of that survey to you so that you can use that information to determine your waste management decision making. Additionally, we would present a opportunity or a plan for expansion of the program if that is something that you are interested in. So here's a look at the program pricing. So how this works is a subsidy model. So Food Cycle Science, we reduce the retail price by 50%. We then ask that the municipality subsidize it by a cost of $100. And then the resident would pick which model or unit suits their needs best, and they contribute that remaining amount. So here's a look at our program sizes. So for North Perth, I would recommend a program of about 150 households. So since the municipal subsidy is $100 per household, a 150 household would require an investment of only $15,000 plus the cost of shipping and taxes. However, this is just a recommendation. We're always willing to work with you to figure out something that's better for your needs and your budget if you are interested. Now, thank you so much for listening to me. I just want to cover a few reasons why you might be interested in partnering with us. First is that you have the opportunity to trial this technology at well below market rates. The next is that you're going to be able to bring your constituents something that is good for the environment. It's reducing greenhouse gases and it's making their life a lot easier. And lastly, you're going to be able to extend the lifespan of your landfill, essentially saving you money in the end. So thank you so much for allowing me to present to you today. All I ask is you receive my presentation as information, and should there be any interest in partnering with us in a funded pilot program, that you refer to staff for a report and recommendation. Thank you so much. I'll stop sharing. I am prepared to answer any questions that there may be.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ron. Colleagues, questions at this point? Anyone want to know more information? Councillor Blazek?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Todd. Thank you for your presentation. This sounds really cool, actually. I think I would, I don't know if I can say cool, but it sounds cool. I think that this really fits in well with our strategic plan. I think that it would be a shame for us to not ask staff to look into cost and recommendation and what that looks like for North Perth.
Thank you, Councillor Blazek. Councillor Anstead.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. Thank you, Maddie, for your presentation. One question I did have, I saw the costing, and that was very helpful. Thank you. Just a question about the filters. You mentioned that those are used for odor. How often would those need to be replaced, and what's the cost of those? Thank you.
Through you, your mayor. Thank you for your question. So the filters last about 3 to 4 months, and that really depends on how often they are being used. The cost of the filter is $20. So we offer them to residents in our municipal program at the wholesale or reduced price. There would be a portal that we would set up so that your residents would be able to go on, they access this price, and then they have those filters shipped to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions or comments for the delegation? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Fromm. Colleagues, what is your desire here? Would you like to have a report to commission or not? Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads. So let's consider a resolution then at this point to direct staff to prepare a report pertaining to the implementation of a pilot program for food cycling in North Perth. And I think that's probably sufficient scope. CAO Snell, does that sound all right? I'm gonna, because you said cool, I'm going to assume that Councillor Blazek wants in as the mover. Councillor Rothwell will be our seconder on this one. Any discussion or debate? All right, seeing none, if the clerk is with us, we're ready. Let's have that vote. Councillor Andreessen records a manual in favor vote, and that is unanimously carried by those who are here. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Ms. Fromm. Our agenda indicates that we will hold two public meetings, one related to a drain and the other related to a land planning matter. For the purpose of executing this public meeting, I use my discretion as head of council to announce a recess that will last the duration of the public meeting. All right, let us turn to the procedures. This is a public meeting for the consideration of the report for the Silver Corners Drain Tanda realignment. I'm certainly pleased to welcome any who have been assist landowners and who are with us this evening, if they're in person or connected remotely. At this hour, we'll call on Brandon Widener from Spreet Associates, who's an engineering firm working for North Perth, to present the drainage report for this realignment. Mr. Widener, welcome. Happy New Year.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight we have the Silver's Corner drain. This is a realignment. It was initiated by Tanda Farms. It's on line 172. It's on the west side of the township. It's almost near the county line. It's a drain, open ditch. It's being proposed to be relocated in one person's property, Tanda Farms. That's why it's being done under a Section 78.5 report, which is a minor improvement. That being said, because it's a minor improvement, it's entirely assessed to that landowner. They pay the entire cost of the project. It's approximately 300 meters of drain to be realigned at the corner of their property, right against Perth line 72. And the drain is just being moved to the adjacent property line. The total cost of the project is $64,000, and that's entirely assessed to that landowner. So, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We've did multiple reports like this in the past, and this one is no different. We have approvals from the Department of Fisheries and, of course, Maitland Valley.
All right, thank you, Mr. Widener. Let's see if any questions emerge here. Anyone on council or in the audience in attendance have questions pertaining to this matter and report? I'm not seeing any indication, but I'll ask one more time. Anyone wishing to address council with questions or comments at this point? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Council colleagues, just making sure everyone is comfortable with proceeding from the report to the close of this meeting. All right. Assuming that no one withdraws, and we're not seeing evidence of that, given that it's one landowner, and significant concerns have not been raised during this meeting, that means that this meeting can now be adjourned. All right, let's tackle the next meeting. This is a public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with an application for zoning bylaw amendment number Z15-2024 submitted by Evan and Kaylee Fallis on behalf of Doug and Brenda Brisbane for property legally described as Lot 16, Concession 7, Wallace Ward, in the municipality of North Perth, municipally known as 5536 Line 89. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance wishing to make comment concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in this matter must make verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to the council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email, telephone, or by utilizing the public meeting sign-in sheet, which is located on the table at the back of the council chambers, giving their mailing address and telephone number. This time I'm going to call for a summary of this application. This will be offered by John Bice, a planner for the County of Perth. Mr. Bice, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg and members of council. Tonight before you is a zoning bylaw amendment that is a condition of consent, file B32-2024. The owners of the property are Doug and Brenda Brisbane, and the applicants are Evan and Kaylee Fallis. The property is located at the Red Star, as you see on the slide above. It's northeast of Gownston. It's known as 5536 Line 89. So the severed lot, which was previously approved through that consent application, created a lot that is 0.76 hectares or 1.9 acres, and then the retained farmland being about 98 acres as well. You can see from the severance sketch, the retained lands are to the north, and then the severed portion was created out of the southwest corner of that property. So the zoning bylaw amendment that is being discussed currently is to rezone the area outlined in yellow to be A1, which would allow the non-farm residential dwelling, and then the area outlined in red to be rezoned A-62, which would ensure no residential dwellings or mobile homes would be placed on that retained farmland. So no concerns have been expressed from any members of the public. Doug and Brenda Brisbane own two farm properties, both with dwellings. So the one located at 5536 is considered surplus to their needs. Servicing is going to remain private. And then the barns that were located on the retained lands have been removed. This is just a site photo for reference. I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bice. We'll come back to the questions in a few moments. All right, I just want to check in with, you've mentioned certainly that you've had no questions or comments from the public with regards to reports, comments, correspondence from other agencies, anything arising that we should know about? Mr. Bice is shaking his head in the negative. Clerk Klein, anything that we received? Okay, thank you. All right, so this is the opportunity in the public meeting to make comments. Those who wish to do so are invited to do so. First, we'll hear from those who are in favor other than the applicant. Anyone wishing to take the opportunity to speak to this application in favor? Clerk Klein, have we had any registrations to that end? All right. Those who are opposed to this may now also share their comments. Are there any who wish to avail themselves of that opportunity? Clerk Klein is saying, nope, nothing registered. All right, the applicant or the applicant's agent may make comments at this point if in attendance. Do we have any indication of that? I'm not seeing that, and so we come to the opportunity for council to offer comments or questions. Colleagues, anything that you'd like to pursue here? Okay, I'm not seeing any evidence of that. So the statutory notice is as follows. Notice of the decision of Council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, we can adjourn this public meeting. All right. Let's reconvene into our regular council meeting. I have resolutions related to the two public meetings that we've held that should be brought to our table. First, as follows, relating to item 8.2 on the agenda, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth accepts the Silver Corners Municipal Drain Tender Realignment Report dated December 12, 2024, prepared by Spree Associates. Moved by Councillor Johnston, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Norton. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move to item 8.3. I have a resolution as follows, that North Perth Council receives the report dated January 6, 2025, entitled Application for Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z 15-2024, submitted by Evan and Kaylee Fallis on behalf of Doug and Brenda Brisbane, affecting lands legally described as Lot 16, Concession 7, Wallace Ward, in the municipality of North Perth, municipally known as 5536, line 89, and that North Perth Council approves zoning bylaw amendment ZN 15-2024, affecting lands legally described above to rezone the retained lands from the agricultural zone A to the special agricultural zone A-62, and to rezone the severed lands from the agricultural zone A to the special agricultural zone A1. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Duncan, thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Kellum, thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right. Let us move forward to departmental reports. Item 9 on our agenda. Thank you, Mr. Bice. Thank you, Mr. Widener, out there in cyberspace somewhere. First, let us consider a report from the Operations Department under item 9.1 of our agenda. As item 9.1.1, Council is in receipt of a report pursuant to a properly executed procurement process that used our relationship with the Canoe Cooperative for the purchase of one wheel loader plus attachments. Our Manager of Operations, Matt Ropp, will provide an overview of this proposed acquisition. Mr. Ropp, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. Before you tonight, we have a report to replace a wheel loader based out of our Atwood Patrol Yard. The current unit is a 2011 model year unit and has reached the end of its life cycle. During the budget preparation for this replacement, it was considered that we would upgrade the unit to help with future endeavors. Some of the upgrades that we were looking at were increased efficiency to snow removal operations in the village of Atwood to help meet future demand and growth in Atwood when it comes to winter operations as well. And lastly, looking at a different type of wheel loader, as simple as this may seem, something that actually provides the use of a larger bucket that does help with other types of operations year-round, such as loading snow and capital works in the summer, which we currently rent units for those types of operations. During the procurement process, unfortunately, the unit did come in over budget. The original budget was $255,000. This unit is coming in at $281,000, which represents an increase of $26,000, or roughly 10% of the original budget. And conferring with our finance department, we're able to make up these extra costs through our general asset management reserves. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ropp. Colleagues, questions, first comments? I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the purchase of one-wheel loader with attachments as specified in the canoe quote from vendor Brandt Tractor Limited of London, Ontario, in the amount of $281,000, excluding HST. Can I call for a mover on this? Councillor Nordham, thank you. Councillor Rothwell will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Mr. Ropp, good job. Thank you. Let's consider three reports next from the Corporate Services Department under item 9.2 of our agenda. As item 9.2.1, Council is presented with its first opportunity to approve the 2025 budget and accompanying business plans for the organization's departments. I'll call on North Perth Treasurer Ashton Romani to discuss this matter. Mr. Romani, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, and good evening, members of Council. So before you tonight, you have the final version of the 2025 business plan and consolidated budget. Following Council's endorsement in early December, staff conducted the final public consultation period. While more details included in the report, I'll summarize the key points. We received 6 responses, which reflected mixed opinions. Notably, there was agreement on the importance of continued investment in reserves, as well as support for the DEI initiative and public art. Staff believe that the 2025 business plan and consolidated budget strikes a balanced and fiscally responsible approach. It prioritizes increased contributions to reserves, maintains operations such as the OPP contract and general municipal services, and expands capacity in human resources, communications, asset management, and records management. Importantly, it also addresses the significant increased costs associated with maintaining our rural unpaved roads, one of the key drivers to the 2025 budget. The proposed budget represents a 6.29% tax levy increase, or approximately $142 per year for the median assessed household, equivalent to last year's impact for the 2024 budget process. For 2025, the municipality's total planned operating budget is $45.9 million, with another $12.5 million allocated to capital projects. The cover report also highlights ongoing funding pressures that will require Council's attention in 2025 and beyond. Continued investment in infrastructure reserves will be crucial to addressing our infrastructure gap. The upcoming update to the asset management plan will provide further guidance on the necessary annual reserve fund contributions. Additionally, staff intend to bring forward updated stormwater rate study later this year for Council's consideration to further build upon this alternative revenue source. Looking ahead, there are significant capital project pressures in the 10-year capital forecast, some of which will likely require debt financing. Staff intend to introduce a debt management policy in 2025 to further guide decision-making, ensuring alignment with both operating and capital priorities. In closing, the 2025 budget process, which began in May of last year, represents a collective effort. I would like to extend my gratitude to the finance team, including Mr. Seifert and Ms. French, who aren't in attendance tonight, management team, CAO Snell, Budget Chair Nordham, Vice Chair Mayor Kasenberg, Council, the public for their input, and all others who participate in this process. Lastly, if there's any feedback on how we can improve the budget process for next year, please don't hesitate to share your suggestions, either tonight or at a later time. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Romani. Colleagues, questions, comments? Councillor Roth.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor Todd. And thanks very much, Ashton, for your report. So just a question, if Council does proceed this evening with the approval, any other changes that this Council would consider would be by way of a budget amendment, is that correct? So for example, the presentation we had here tonight, if the report comes and if Council agrees that whatever amounts that would come forward for the subsidy would have to be a budget amendment. Is that correct?
Through your case work, that's correct to a certain extent, depending on what the issue may be. But using tonight as an example, we would just fund it directly from reserves.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else with questions or first comments on this? Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you through you, Mayor Kusenberg. My question is just around our percentage and how it is comparative to other local municipalities. Are we kind of at the same rate this time around, or a little bit less, a little bit more? Just wondering where we're sitting at this point. Thank you.
Through your case work, I don't have any direct compares in front of me at this point in time. It's tough to say. We did meet with the treasurers back in mid-December, but my memory's a little bit fuzzy on that. But I'd be happy to kind of consolidate something to share back with council at a later time.
Okay. Anyone else with questions or comments at this point? Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Ashton, could you just remind us again how the growth in the community affects the budget this year?
Through your Casenberg. So the weighted assessment growth was around 1.5%. So that gave us around $300,000 in additional levy funding. So I think, don't have the number in front of me. I think it was 7.95% is our tax levy increase, but considering the growth brings it down to that 6.29 that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's, I think, worth noting as well that the OPP policing budget has now been sort of subsidized by the province, which made us smile a little bit, I think, given the potential impact that that could have had on the tax rate. So grateful for that change. Councillor Rothwell, further?
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. And I just want to pick up on Councillor Andreessen's question about comparative municipalities. Again, for council will recall is that we've been trying to get to this point of having a budget considered for approval early in the year. This is about the earliest in the year I think we could possibly be, other than getting into December. So I want to applaud our staff and certainly the work of our budget chair and council as a whole to getting us to this point. So frankly, I suspect that's one of the reasons why we won't have any comparators to look at and not to, be really proud of this and so on. I mean, we'd really like to get into the new year so that we have the whole year budgeted ahead of time. But as we talked about earlier, and perhaps Ashton can talk about this, is that we have to understand is that the budget is, can be amended from time to time as things change. And I think this council certainly is thankful that the province came through with the relief on the policing side, because it was going to be a substantial increase as noted in the report. So anyways, I just want to thank Ashton and the staff and certainly our budget sharing council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments? Do we have any concepts for relief mechanisms so that if, this increase that some property owners see pushes them into financial trouble, do we have an approach or thought about how we can support taxpayers that in many cases probably at that point are on fixed incomes that might need a little bit of help to get through this year?
Yeah, through your case, there is, I believe it has to be established by the upper tier. I believe it's for extreme poverty and disabled seniors. I can't remember the exact name of the program, but it's a legislative program that an upper tier can opt into. Now, that program, you can only defer taxes that are in excess of, I believe, 3% or $50, whichever is greater. But you only get to defer the additional amount beyond that. So ultimately, it would still be collected. It's not written off. So there's no other real legislation that exists right now that you can waive or discount a portion of taxes.
Thank you. CAO Snell, I'm going to call on you for this one too then. Is there provisions within the frameworks that municipalities operate under to create their own initiative or program should such be needed or felt needed by a council?
Not that I'm aware of. Certainly we can look into that more, but I do believe that the program that Lyndon has talked about, certainly there are programs available through other agencies that are available to residents. And we could accumulate that list as well and bring that back, or promote it publicly.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, would you entertain a staff direction towards that end to sort of understand what the platform is for supporting those who might find themselves in indigent circumstances with regards to our property tax increase that's proposed? I see a few heads nodding yes, so why don't I draft in my head here a resolution that we direct staff to bring back a report that addresses possible um, ameliorations or fixes or improvements, something like that, for those who are struggling with the increased costs of property taxes that are coming from our budget. Something like that. Anyone got any fixes you want to make for that? Like this is pretty wide scope. It could be that, as CAO Snell said, there's some organizations in the community as well that may have granting programs, loans, whatever. Okay, clerk, sort of got something there that simplify my words if you want to. That's great. Okay, so moved by Councillor Andreessen, seconded by just Councillor Rothwell. Thank you. All right, any discussion or debate on that as an idea, Councillor Johnson?
I don't mind the idea. I think we'll have to keep the parameters pretty tight on how to qualify, or else everybody's going to cry wolf and say, "Hey, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. We want our $10 back as well." So, just a warning that we will have to keep it pretty tight on the parameters.
I'm fairly confident that there are reasonable procedures to sort of gauge the impacts that could be had on indigent households. So I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. I think that there needs to be tight controls, and I'm sure that the staff will look at how we approach that in terms of means testing or whatever. Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. I believe Ashton provided some general information about the county's policy in this respect. So perhaps in that report we'll be more educated about the existing program and how that could address the concerns that you've outlined here. And if there is a need to go further, what we can possibly do under those tight parameters. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That was wise, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else with comments or questions on this one? You have a resolution that's readable, interpretable. All right, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right. Now to the core resolution. That's where we're heading. Councillor Rothwell, some further.
Just a question before the motion, please, Mayor Todd, through you, just to our county councillors, where's the county at with respect to its budget approvals? And is there a projected time frame where we'd be looking at that?
Thank you. I'm going to ask Warden Kellum to speak to that.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mayor Caseberg. Yes, we're not close at all. We have some issues that is now out in the open with regards to regional roads. And I believe we may be looking into late June or July before it is passed. We have I better not say that. That's all I would say, that we're looking into June and into July for now. Thank you.
I have to admit, I wasn't aware that July was the timeline. So I think all of us are saying, wow, at this point. Thank you for that information. All right. Yeah. There we go. Anyone else with questions or comments before we consider the resolution? All right, thank you. The resolution as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the 2025 Business Plan and Consolidated Budget Approval Report for information purposes, and further that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the 2025 Business Plan and Consolidated Budget as presented. Moved by Councillor Nordum, thank you. Makes sense. Seconded by Councillor Blazek, thank you. Any discussion or debate further? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried unanimously. Councillor Woodham, I express appreciation on behalf of council for your service, and I think to the staff, an amazing job. I will note in my experience this year, it did feel like we had a lot more detail, which was really helpful in decision setting, and appreciate that the team in finance is doing that for us to help us when we need that level of detail. So thank you very much to the staff. Councillor Goodham, did you want to offer any comments on this, just as a courtesy?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to just quick thank staff for all the hard work and all the participants, as well as the people that weighed in on the surveys. That definitely helps with planning a budget. But yeah, thanks all around.
Okay, thank you. All right. I don't know if you're running away, Mr. Romani, or whether you're up for the next piece, but let's consider the next piece. This is the hardest vote of the year, actually. As item 9.3.2, the Treasurer has brought forward a routine and necessary matter to invite Council to appoint the Chair and Vice Chair from amongst its membership for the 2026 budget year-end process. Mr. Romani, you're up. Do your best ceiling, man.
Yeah, through Mayor Kasenberg, I don't have anything more to add aside from your preamble there. So yeah, we're looking for the appointment of the chair and vice chair for the upcoming budget year.
Is that like the ultimate diplomacy? Yeah, that was fascinating. All right. Okay. It is customary that the chair for subsequent year comes from the vice chair from the previous year, and I am willing to serve in that capacity, so I can relieve some people's apprehensions immediately. But I do need a colleague, a buddy, so to speak. So I'm kind of looking around the table and saying who's willing to spend some time in a room with me and the finance team for a little bit later in this year. Councillor Duncan.
I'm willing to put my name forward for vice chair.
We have one. Anyone else? Everybody's like, whoa, relieved, relieved. All right. So let's frame the resolution then and get it done before he changes his mind. Um, as follows: the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints Todd Kasenberg to be the chair of the Budget Committee, and further, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth appoints Matt Duncan to be the vice chair of the Budget Committee. Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried, and I'm sure there's a whole lot of relief around the room. All right. As item 9.2.3, the Deputy Clerk has brought forward, with consent from the Governance Review Committee, a draft of a new bylaw addressing procedures to be used by our boards and committees. This agenda item warrants suggestions and input from Council, with instructions to bring forward a draft reflecting the will of Council at a future meeting. So we have a little time to ponder this. Deputy Clerk Sarah Carter has stepped into the podium to address this matter with more detail. Ms. Carter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, through you to members of council. Before you tonight is a draft of a new boards and committee procedure bylaw. So I'll give a little bit of background information. So it's a requirement under the Municipal Act that every municipality pass a procedure bylaw to govern the calling, place, and proceeding of meetings. As you're aware, currently the municipality of North Perth has two procedure bylaws. The first one is for council meetings that was passed in 2023. We also have a boards and committee procedure bylaw with its last update where it was passed in 2018. So since 2018, bits and pieces of the bylaw have been updated as needed, but a fulsome review has not been undertaken until the Governance Review Committee added it to their work plan and reviewed it in 2024. So the new draft bylaw is included in tonight's agenda package for your consideration. As well, there's a table highlighting some of the changes that were made. I'll just briefly touch on some of the most impactful, probably, or the most Yeah, the ones that are probably going to catch your attention as you're reading through the document. So the entire document has been updated to include language and headings that are consistent with the 2023 Council Procedure Bylaw. So to keep both bylaws consistent and sort of reflecting each other. Section 5.2 was added. The current bylaw does not have any attendance requirements for our committee members. We generally don't have problems with this, but it has come up a couple times in the past that we should have some sort of enforceable attendance requirement. Section 6.2 was amended to allow the first board or committee meeting of the term to focus more on introductions, training, and onboarding. As the bylaw currently is written, the one that we are using from 2018, all of our boards and committees sort of just jump right into business at their first meeting, and they feel like they don't have a lot of time to get their footing. Section 14 gives our advisory committees an opportunity to have a roundtable discussion, which was felt that this would give our volunteer members an opportunity to sort of share their opinions. Section 18 was included to add a time limit to the meetings. So similar to the council time limit, this can be extended if it needs to be by a vote of the board or committee. They can carry on for longer than 2 hours. And each of the terms of reference have been updated. They've been given a more consistent format so that they're from one board to the next, they're all sort of following the same template. So tonight, just sort of looking for some feedback, comments, anything you would like to see added or removed, and then staff will update the bylaw and bring it back to a future council meeting.
All right, thank you, Ms. Carter. Colleagues, comments, input. It is a massive undertaking, that's for sure. And I can immediately express appreciation to the Governance Review Committee for this work and to the clerking team for all of the investment they've made in this. Let's have some comments or questions. Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kissenberg. Yes, this is a lengthy process to look at. I just found a couple of typo errors. Under general rules on page 263 of the entire package, general rules 3D. In 3D, you need to add the word to.
Could we maybe just direct by email since this is a consideration?
There's just three errors, and I can email that too, and that's fine.
Great. Your clerk's team, I'm sure, is open to spotting of good proofreading. All right. Anyone else with comments or questions about this before we consider the resolution? All right, the resolution is as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to incorporate any feedback received at the January 6, 2025 Council meeting into the final version of the Board and Committee Procedure Bylaw, and that staff be directed to bring forward a final version of the Board and Committee Procedure Bylaw to the January 27, 2025 Council meeting for Council consideration. I think we should change that word from approval to consideration again, just because we shouldn't preempt that. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Councillor Andreessen will be our seconder. We note that there will be some proofreading comments that Councillor Andreessen has. Anyone else have discussion or debate on this? All right. If we're ready, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And again, phenomenal work. Thank you very much for all of that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. I shouldn't say exactly so enthusiastically, perhaps, Councillor Johnston. I don't know. All right, thank you. That brings us along to item 10 in our meeting. Does any member of council wish to ask for a report from staff or of a committee? Not seeing anything there. For item 11, we have received no items of correspondence beyond that already shared in the consent agenda for council's disposition. At this point, we turn to consideration of bylaws that have been recommended to us for action. Tonight we have 5 bylaws for our consideration. The enabling resolution outlines for each bylaw their number and purpose. Before I read the resolution for passing or considering these bylaws, does any councillor wish to extract one or more of these for a more fulsome consideration or for individual or recorded vote? I'm not seeing any expression of that, so I have the resolution. We'll put it on the table. That the following bylaws are hereby passed. 1-2025, being a bylaw to assume the services for Wellington Estates Phases 4 and 5. 2-2025, being a bylaw to assume the services for H&J Dunnigan Holdings Inc. Industrial Subdivision. 3-2025, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement at the Office of the Fire Marshal Fire Protection Grant, and 4-2025, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended. And bylaw 5-2025, Silver Corners Municipal Drain Tanda Realignment be read a first and second time and be provisionally adopted. Can I call for removal? Councillor Duncan, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordum, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothman.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I just want to point out the one bylaw dealing with the funds coming from the province regarding the fire marshal and for acquiring equipment for our fire department. It comes at a very important time in the month. This is Firefighter Appreciation Month in January, and their safety is paramount. And certainly, the presentation at the North Perth Firefighters Appreciation event in December, I think their speaker highlighted the important issues of bunker gear being properly cleaned and showering and so on is important. And I note that those are two specific issues that the funding that we're getting from the province is going to help within our fire departments. I appreciate that and look forward to its approval. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else with comments? All right. So it's duly moved and seconded, I think. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda. At this hour, does any councillor wish leave to give notice of motion for our next meeting? I'm not seeing any hands wave at me. Let's turn to item 14 on our agenda. For item 14, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth? And I'm not sure that we have any connected remotely, but if they had, we should monitor for that. Anyone? Announcements? Besides Happy New Year, Happy 2025? We're here, all right. Then let's move to item 15 on our agenda. We do not have any matters to be considered in a closed session meeting of council, so we do not need to consider a resolution to so enable. And of course, because we are not holding a closed session, there is nothing to report from a closed session, which brings us to our right near the end of our meeting here. Council has a mandated good practice acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I'll now read the enabling resolution for this bylaw as follows: that bylaw 6-2025 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the council of the municipality of North Perth is hereby passed. Moved by Councillor Nordum, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek. I think I saw a hand sort of wave in my peripheral vision. Any discussion or debate on that? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Colleagues, that brings us to the happy moment of the meeting to consider adjournment. We have completed the business that was before us, and it is thus appropriate for us to consider adjournment as follows: that the council meeting adjourns at 8:04 p.m. I'm tempted to say woohoo, actually, to meet again for general council business on Monday, January 27th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Anstead. It's not debatable. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Colleagues, our next regular council meeting is a little bit out of the usual sequence, in part because the Roma meeting intervenes. So we will meet on Monday, January 27th, 2025. Some amongst us will be at Roma, and I wish you good learning. All of those who are going until our next meeting, this council is adjourned.